Hello everyone, I'm Malin Kramer and I'm working at Edinburgh Napier University. My colleague Dan Ridley Ellis and I, among other partners, are working in the In Future Wood project. We are investigating how we could reuse wood in the future, especially for building projects. And for this project, we were also investigating the wood recycling sector in the UK. We wanted to find out how the wood recycling industry works at the moment and how we could maybe make it better in the future. With me is Carlo Kupfernagel from Bangor University, and he is interviewing me today.
Hi Marlene, your work deals a lot with circular economy and sustainability and recycling. There are surely many paths that the product can take after its primary use, say as a garden shed. Can you briefly describe the typical cascade of a wood product?
I'll actually describe for you the perfect cascade of a wood product, which is the one where you always keep the highest integrity of the material. In my publication, we are actually following your garden shed through the wood recycling industry. So you've built this garden shed with boards and beams, and afterwards you would like to keep the structural integrity of the material. So, for example, you could make laminated products from the wood, like CLT or glulam. After this next use cycle, which would again be a structural reuse, you could, for example, chip the material and use it in particle boards or medium density fiber boards. And afterwards, you could still use the material, probably again in these board products, or you could use it for chemical products like nanocellulose. And in the very, very end of the wood life cycle, it can always be used for biomass as energy.
What could I do as an individual consumer to support such a sustainable circular economy?
That's a very good question. It all starts with you, actually. So, did you imagine your garden shed? And can you tell me what it looks like?
Yeah, there's probably solid wood walls and like a roof. It's huge. It's huge.
My garden shed, on the other hand, it looks completely different. Mine is painted. It's green actually, and it has a flat roof because I want to plant things on it. Both our garden sheds will end up in the same wood skip together. That means we have all sorts of wood in there. We have clear, solid, intact wood. We have painted wood, maybe treated wood, but maybe it's preservative treated, you can't even see it. We have decayed wood, we have thermally modified wood, we have fasteners in there because we were too lazy to remove the nails, or maybe you had a tongue and groove system, so you just pulled everything off, there are no fasteners in there. We have other materials attached to our wood, maybe roof felt. And of course we also have some engineered wood products from the interior. We have OSB, MDF, particle board, and maybe even some doors and windows.
As an individual, I don't really have an influence of what's happening to my wood.
I don't think so, Carlo. Actually, you do have an influence. Just imagine, you're taking down your woodshed. First of all, did you take good care of it during its first life? Or is it completely decayed? Then of course the next step, do you actually care enough to make it accessible for your reuse? Do you maybe put it on Gumtree or ask your neighbor if he wants your garden shed? Then of course there's your customer choice. For your new garden shed, you always have the choice to go to the community wood recycling and buy the material there.
Do I? I didn't know that. That's great.
Yes, so the company models in the UK for wood recycling and the companies that we visited are on the one hand chipping companies, of course. So they chip the material for animal bedding, for board making, mostly for board making, but also for mulches and garden fills like this. And on the other hand, we have the community wood recyclers. These are smaller companies. They only have a handful of employees usually, and they rely a lot on volunteer work. They produce furniture and unique items, and they also resell timber for your DIY projects. So we visited in total 2 community wood recyclers, 3 chipping companies and 2 board making companies, all in Scotland and Northern England.
So how could we sort the waste wood according to its quality?
Yes, there is an official system by the WRA, the Wood Recyclers Association, and they kinda sort the wood according to its quality. So we have 4 grades, which are grade A, only for clean wood, mostly from packaging material. Grade B, which also includes treated wood and wood from construction and demolition sites. Grade C, that also includes wood products like MDF and particle boards and so on. And grade D, which is only for hazardous wood, which is treated with CCA or other harmful heavy metals. So this is a system that is proposed by the WRA, but it's not actually used by the companies. You can get a little bit of a higher price if you sort your material. So if you pull out all the solid wood and sell it to the companies separately, you'll get a little bit of a higher price. But if you sell it all as a mixed skip, you'll make a little less money, but maybe it's not worth the effort to pull out the quality material. The companies will get all these materials off your garden shed, and also some other materials, not only of course your garden shed, they'll also get furniture, wood from packaging material, wood from demolition sites, leftover materials from construction, also industrial waste, for example a lot of whiskey barrels. So they'll get all this material completely unsorted. They put it in the yard in a big pile, and they will usually process it like this. But in some cases it is actually sorted. So of course there are the community wood recycling companies, and they will pull out the quality material to reuse it or manufacture furniture from it. Then there are shipping companies who will also pull out quality material for the manufacturing of animal bedding. For this you can only use really high quality material. They also encourage the waste providers to sort the material, and they say it works quite well. Then there are shipping companies, and they will pull out packaging material, but only to determine the share of packaging material or the amount, because they receive a government incentive, a packaging recovery note. When they recycle any packaging material, they will receive some government funding. You have this huge pile of unsorted timber in the yard of the shipping company, and of course they don't care at all about the properties and about the material mix. The things that they care about is the MDF in there, because MDF ends up in the wood skips, but it can't really be reused, recycled. So they pull out the MDF manually by hand, and all the rest, and in reality it looks more like here, all the rest it will be shredded, and then it will run through the factory on conveyor belts, and first people will manually pull out plastics, MDF, other big contaminations. It will run through under magnets to pull out metal, and there will be some air classification and float classification that sorts out the dirt and stones, the float classification, and sieves as well, and the air classification sorts out lighter parts, plastics and so on. So this will happen in the shipping company, and then all the chips are, you have the output in a higher quality and a lower quality. The lower quality contains more contaminations like mechanical contaminations. For chemical contaminations, none of the shipping companies is testing if there's any hazardous material in their input material. They just rely on the demolition contractors and other waste providers to not deliver any hazardous material. And the better class chips will then go to the board making companies mostly, and there they will, for the first time in the wood recycling chain, they will test for chemical contamination. And then these companies will water down the contaminated chips, if there are any, with clean chips. But they say very rarely they have to send back a batch of chips because it is contaminated. So it doesn't happen very often. And afterwards, these chips will be purified again in the same ways as in the shipping companies. So they will run through magnets, through air sorting, float classification, and so on. And then it happens all again, and probably again and again, because the chips need to be quite clean and there is lots of contamination in there. And then to ensure that the quality of the materials is always the same, they add virgin material. They add wood chips from UK spruce, but also sawmill residues. So they add up to 60% virgin material, and one of the companies, they actually only use recycled material in the core layer of the product, and the other company, they use it as a mix, but they don't use any recovered material in the furniture grade of the MDF. In the community wood recycling, they receive also unsorted wood from all kinds of sources. They will only sort it in useful and not useful for furniture production. So it really depends on the opinion of the volunteer. They pull out a piece of wood, they like it, they'll use it. And all the material that they sell, they will not touch at all. They will not remove nails, they will not remove paint. Their message is, someone will need it as it is. You don't need to do anything with it, because the customers actually like when their parts look a bit scrappy, when they are not perfect. So they have character.
To my knowledge, there are already other industries like the paper industry that use a lot of recycled fibers already.
Yes, in the paper industry, I think around 75% of paper are recycled and used again in paper. But in the wood industry, it is very different. I've prepared this kind of Sankey diagram. Take it with a grain of salt, because the numbers are from different publications and from different years sometimes, but something like this is the waste wood flow in the UK. And you see that the biomass use of wood is actually 50%, or in 2020 for the first time, more than 50%. And the reuse of wood as a high cascading step is only 2.5%.
What would you think are the limiting fibers in the reuse of waste wood?
So the limiting factors are definitely not the quality of the wood. So what we found out is that a lot of wood is actually in good quality, or could be in a good quality for reuse or high cascading steps, but you don't have financial incentives. For example, when the wood comes from demolition sites, the contractors, they will not take care to keep the wood in a good condition. In the demolition process, it will be destroyed, it will be broken down for transport. It's also a demand question, of course. If there was more demand for environmentally friendly products, for used wood, and if a structural reuse of the product was actually possible, maybe this could be done differently. One big problem that all the big companies mentioned is the biomass sector in the UK, which is growing a lot. And this increasing demand is also leading to increasing prices.
There's also the question in the room of the costs of recycled wood. How much cheaper would recycled wood be, for example? Do you have any data on this?
I don't have any data on this, but I know that the biggest driver in using recovered wood is the cost. The good thing is that here economical benefits go hand in hand with environmental benefits. You use recovered wood, which gives you a price incentive. You drive your production in closed loops, like you use the material that is offcuts and so on again in the process as an input. So you don't have waste, really. You use the fines and dust for heat production for the press. So all these things are, of course, they follow circular economy principles, but not for the sake of circular economy, but for the sake of price.
Yeah, but I think that's the only way you can build up a green economy within our system.
It might be. I think also the government should be a big driver for this. I mean, at the moment they are supporting the biomass energy sector as a short-term or short-sighted solution towards a greener economy. But if they actually supported long-term solutions that make better use of the material and drive towards a circular economy, they could have a lot of influence. They can offer monetary incentives, and we saw this is the most important driver for making environmentally friendly decisions.
Yeah, it would be a great future if we could all recycle, if we would have closed loops within our raw material flow.
Yeah, and all these closed loop systems, of course, they already start in the design of products. So you have to design houses, buildings, garden sheds in a way so they can be disassembled and the wood can be recovered in a good condition. Then it comes to the demolition technique. Lastly, of course, the demand, but I think our society is developing in the right direction. And yeah, it all starts with you.
So I think it's a fascinating project that you're working on. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
How can you ensure that you only pick the best quality waste wood out of it for structural reuse?
What you're asking is actually the main focus of our work package in the whole project, so it's something that we can't really answer yet.